South Park: The Fractured Bottle is a strategic role-playing game released in October 2017 by Ubisoft. Whilst the game seems to be simple on the surface, there are many unknown subjects that have yet to be uncovered. In this Iceberg, we will be going deeper and deeper from facts that everyone knows to extremely obscure facts that only a small portion of the people know about. Let's dive right into it. Might represents your character's strength in combat. The higher the might means the stronger you are. Might can be increased with artifacts, and so throughout the game, your might will require a high level depending on the enemies you fight. Not a lot to say on this one. The game's combat system is based on a grid and each power has different ranges. Kinda like what I said earlier, powers are used during combat and they have different ranges. There are different types of powers: buffs, attacks, summons, swaps, and finally ultimates. Allies are your buddies in battle, and all have different stats and powers. The game currently has 12 main game allies, 2 DLC allies, and 2 temporary allies. Not a lot to say on this entry except that missions are pretty much quite essential to the game. The game contains 2 different types of missions, being main and side missions. The way to differentiate them is usually by looking at the mission's banner color. If it is blue, then it is a main mission. If it is green, then it is a side mission. Main missions are related to the main story, whilst side missions are absolutely not required whatsoever. But of course, with some exceptions. The new kid is the game's main protagonist. During the prologue, he is seen using his king powers. However, he will later on have different classes, with each of them having different backstories assigned. The game currently holds 10 main game classes and 2 DLC classes. The new kid also has different time farts, only 3 of them being used throughout the entire game and 2 being temporary. His appearance is entirely based on the player. Mitch Connor is the game's main antagonist. He is the Coon's left hand. We'll talk about his plan in the next entry. Mitch Connor would escape prison after his plan to impersonate Jennifer Lopez failed. By that point, he was presumed to be dead in an oil rig explosion. But he would later come back and use the Coon in order to run for mayor. His plan was to use cat urine as a way to increase crime by putting it in the town's alcohol and drugs, causing Mayor McDaniels to lose favor with the public. Once elected, he planned to make every day Christmas, as it is the day with the most crime within the year. Mitch Connor would have united Russian, Chinese, and Italian gangsters, the entire SPPD, crab people, the 6th graders, and meth heads, also being helped in his plan by Professor Chaos and Dr. Mephisto. This entry refers to 2 classes that were removed from the game. It's unknown when exactly they were removed, but they were seen in the E3 demo. It seems that they were entirely replaced by the DLC classes as seen by their names in the playerclasses.juice file. The Demon Child is surprisingly functional, having some animations replaced by the netherboards. As for the Mystic, the class is extremely incomplete due to the developers having deleted most of what was left of it. They would have used the Mummy and Arcane outfits respectively. There are 3 different types of cutscenes: videos, also known as Bing files, in-game cutscenes, and event cutscenes. The videos are self-explanatory. They are video files on which the new kid gets overlaid on. If you look closely, it's pretty easy to tell which cutscenes are videos, as they are really pixelated. In-game cutscenes are pretty much the same as the videos, but they use in-game assets. Event or PH cutscenes happen in the overworld. Event cutscenes are unskippable, whilst the rest depends. This entry is pretty much impossible to finish, as there are way too many E3 leftovers, so instead I'll just give you a short list of what there is. Power icons, classes, powers, menus, and even some things that seem to predate the demo, such as sketches. If you want to know more, join our Discord, as Outsword Warrior will be happy to share them with you. Dr. Timothy is the only character you cannot unlock. Why? Well, we don't know the exact reasoning as to why. He did appear briefly in a trailer fighting alongside the gang in the Bike Creek. That was totally not a spoiler. He was going to be unlocked on day 4. All of his powers are functional except his ultimate, which has a broken animation. The earliest known demo is the pre-alpha demo, which was given out to multiple content creators back in 2016. Some mechanics seem to heavily resemble Stick of Truth, and it would end after the first Civil War. The other one is the E3 demo, where only the Peppermint Hippo mission is accessible. It seems to be more complete than the aforementioned demo. The last one is a free demo that you could download before the game came out. It's pretty much exactly the same as the final game, except some parts are locked off. The shooting range is both a cut area and a minigame. It would have appeared somewhere after the Jared boss fight, judging by the order of the objectives in the mission file. The description of the minigame is interesting to say the least. There's quite a few graphics for it, the most interesting of those being an exterior view of the room. SM64 or Side Mission 64 refers to an unused mission where you had to rescue Kenny's sister Karen from the HambodyKydz. It seems to be fully complete. It has working objectives, an icon, and even cutscenes. Unfortunately, it can't be completed since the cemetery where the mission would have taken place has been removed from the game. SM14 is another unused mission where you have to help HambodyKydz defeat his cousin for the 3rd time. He is at the community center giving some sort of speech to a bunch of Jewish people who attack you after they spot you. This is one of the only unused missions that can be completed. This is yet another unused mission where you help Tolkien go on a date with Nicole, maybe? It's unclear, as there is no audio in the cutscenes. Anyway, you go to Buca de Fagocini, where the chefs notice you and try to get revenge. After defeating them, the two say some stuff, then the mission ends. Nicole is related to the aforementioned mission, where she would have appeared as a one-off ally, like Santa. She has 2 powers, a punch and a buff. She doesn't have any voice lines, but those make noises when hit, shield, healed, etc. She is very unfinished, as shown by multiple creepy glitches with her model. Karen was going to appear in the aforementioned mission SM64, where she would have supported you with some sort of buff power. It's unclear what it was gonna be, since it's so unfinished that it has no animation and an incomplete tuning. This entry refers to 2 unused missions related to Toolshed. SM31, the first part of the duology, is a mission where you have to get condoms for Stan's grandpa, Marvin. SM72, the second part, is a mission where you would have to get him or someone else morning after pills. Both of these missions are relatively complete, but much like the Kenny mission, it cannot be completed as Marvin's room was removed from the game. The Sorum is an area that was removed from the Bring the Crunch DLC. It would have been next to Nathan's cabin. 2 counselors would have been tied above 2 death traps, and you would have to choose which one you wanted to save. For a long time, this area was a complete mystery until a fellow YouTuber and friend of mine, Outsword Warrior, got it to work, which put an end to the year-long mystery. The scientists would have been in Mephisto's lab. You would have had to save both of them to get past the door. As it is from an early version of the storyline, not a lot remains except some voice lines, objectives, and a dead scientist model, whose arm you had to rip off to get past the door. Yeah, pretty disgusting. An archetype scientist NPC can still be found in the game files, although it's relatively incomplete, having only one power and a broken animation using an unused Chaos Mexican model. This image is from a really early mock-up of the map. As you can see, there are a ton of areas that were either completely removed or moved to another location. Short entry, but still quite interesting. This refers to a folder containing a ton of item graphics, some being leftovers from South Park The Stick of Truth, while others are simply early versions of existing items. This is the original version of the Plantmancer class. Not a lot is known about it other than it being shown in some early gameplay. Although, as Ragzer stated it in his 10 facts you might not know video, it was simply just overhauled into a plant-themed class. The pig couple is an unused enemy that would have appeared in Mephisto's lab. Not a lot is known about it, as it doesn't even have a model. But it does have tuning and one power called Mate, which summons a lot of exploding pigs. It's unknown what it would have looked like if it was still in the game, but we can speculate that a female 6th grader would have been involved and also turned into a mutant pig. I don't even want to talk about the animation. Thank God this was cut. This refers to the fact that a lot of storyboard versions of the cutscenes were left in the files for whatever reason. It's still interesting to look at them though. This entry refers to early versions of the story's cutscenes, which reveal completely different plans than what the original game looks like. I will link this person's video as well as all Sword Warriors video in the description, as it shows most cutscenes. Altered versions of the story can be found. One of the most known ones is probably this unused New Kid enemy referred as the Fateful Knight's Speedster. As in the final backstory, you would have chosen to fight the burglars or yourself. Most of these remnants can be found in a file called menus_unused.logpack. This entry is self-explanatory. It refers to unused menus, most notable ones being the debug menu, the mission loader, this test menu, and this hidden conversation between Wonder Twig and Super Craig. Carlos Mencia is a comedian that appeared in South Park's 186th episode, Fish Sticks, where he is tied up and killed by Kanye West. You may wonder why I'm even bringing this up as we're talking about South Park The Fractured Bottle and not the show. Well, guess what? Carlos Mencia was supposed to appear in the back room of Bucal Fagocini. It seems that he was cut early as he looks very unfinished. There is also another NPC called Italian Mob Torture Guy who is related to Carlos. The DNA app, or Hero DNA, is an app where you could upgrade your character's abilities in a few ways. First off, the auras. These auras would have likely activated after ending the New Kid's turn. Triggers are kind of self-explanatory, they would have activated after getting attacked or attacking an enemy, etc. Consumables is unclear. The difficulty option is the only one that works and it changes the difficulty of your game. There is also data that suggests that you could originally upgrade your time farts. Butthole's dog is a removed character. Being the New Kid's dog, he would have appeared in the second backstory. The only leftovers of this character is one power and tuning data. Butthole's dog has been replaced by the baby. SM37 is an unused mission called Cosby the Cocoa. In this mission you would have had to craft the Cosby Cocoa item and give it to Fillmore. One of the ingredients for it, the Quaaludes, were going to be inside Mr. Garrison's house. Speaking of Mr. Garrison, he was going to appear in the game. At the time of the game's development, he was the president, which is why he was cut. However, he was supposed to return at some point, as there are voice lines, a model for him, and his house. He also appears in an early version of one of the cutscenes near the end of the game. This entry refers to exactly that, time farts that were removed from the game, those time farts being scrub, repeat, and skip. Repeat would have allowed you to repeat a chosen character's turn, and skip would have allowed you to skip in front of everyone on the battle timeline. Scrub is completely unknown, but it uses the skip time farts key item. It may be a placeholder for said time farts. As of writing the script, all of the time farts mentioned are entirely functional. Fillmore's parents are completely cut characters that were going to play quite a big role in the story. According to the menus_unused.logback file and side mission 43, they would have been part of a crime ring. They would have also been fought in said mission, while the objective was to free other cats from Fillmore's basement. Barely anything is left from them other than tuning data and voice lines. Wesley is yet another removed character. He was going to be Mitch Connor's right-hand man. He can actually be seen in this cutscene standing next to Mitch. There is not a lot of leftovers for him, only a pupil animation, a timeline portrait, 2 skill script files for his powers, and an early version of the You vs Everyone cutscene, where he talks about how you made a lot of enemies in the town. Interestingly, the Italian mobster's voice in the cutscene before you fight the city ninjas is still called Wesley. We don't have much info on this one. All we know is that they would have appeared in an unused mission called Save the Sacrament or SM65. Judging by that name, the zombies were just drunk people. There is another leftover inside an NPC file which suggests there was going to be an exploder variation. This refers to the fact that the score was originally a lot bigger than what we got in the final game. Areas such as the computer lab, 4th grade classroom, kitchen, serving room, etc. were all going to appear. The museum is perhaps the most mysterious cut area. Absolutely nothing is known about it other than a cell logic file. This refers to the fact that originally they were going to look completely different. According to the names of some unused powers, they would have resembled the original designs as seen in the episode Jared as AIDS. Sadly, none of them work. There are remnants of tools that were used to create the game like Camel NPC Editor, Juice Debug, Script Editor, and so on. There's also a lot of tiny icons in the game files that are most likely leftovers from a dev program. Some missions have been completely deleted from both the game and the game files. These missions include SM04, SM13, SM44, and SM61. Barely anything is known about them, as everything has been deleted except SM13. The only remnants of it are 2 cell files called MSN_SM14_TimmyRecruit_TimmyLivingRoom.mcellogic and MSN_SM13_TimmyRecruit_Default.mcellogic, indicating that the mission would have probably been called Timmy Recruit, some sort of follow-up or prologue to another unused mission called Timmy Loyalty or SM29. Oasis IDs are basically character soundbites. If you replace the Coon's Oasis ID with Mysterion's, the Coon will have his voice lines. Looking through all the Oasis IDs reveals some characters that have been completely removed from the game, like Stick Stan, Stick Kenny, Grandma Starch, or elves? Yeah, some are really weird. This refers to two cut body powers from Mysterion and the Kun respectively. The Kun's power is really incomplete as there is only one power file for it, which also reveals the name of it, Kun Rope. Mysterion's body power, on the other hand, seems pretty complete. It has a graph file, a cell file, and even an NPC file for Stan's dad, who was probably the target of the possession. Design missions are a special type of missions. They are used by the developers as testing missions for the rest of the game, which leaves all of them completely unused. Some of them also trigger the famous Find Mosquito pip, which is also probably from one of the missing missions or an early version of the Resens mission. This entry will refer to multiple cut areas other than the ones that were previously mentioned. All of these areas have been rebranded into the current Danger Deck DLC. The city dump, the waste management, the bike creek, and the aforementioned graveyard/cemetery are all former in-game areas and were completely rebranded for the DLC. Well, that was the entire South Park The Fractured Bottle Iceberg explained. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a project that took a lot of time, but I think it was worth it. Huge shout out to Assault Warrior for both the script and helping to set up the whole project. Mouse1R for helping with the Iceberg, and Ragzer for his videos on cut content, and also agreeing to participate in the project. If you guys actually enjoyed it as much as we did, then we might do a part 2. But anyways, it was done with us. Have a great day and see you soon.